Buried in Highgate Cemetery, London, beside the historical figure Karl Marx, lies one of the most influential people of the post-war period, and somebody who is largely responsible for the visibility and the freedom of expression of the Caribbean community in Britain today, Claudia Jones. A radical feminist, communist, and anti-imperialist who established herself in the US by advocating for an early form of intersectionality that she claimed was triple oppression, that recognized that people's experiences and oppression differ greatly depending on someone's race, class, and or gender. Despite her pleas for progression in the US, she was deported in 1955, being prosecuted under the Smith Act, deeming her somebody whose radical beliefs threatened to overthrow the American government, a typical American move. Jones did not let this setback stop her from advocating for what she believed in. Jones took her work elsewhere, and this elsewhere needed Jones more than ever before. Fast forward to Britain, 1955, a post-war atmosphere that was heading for racial turmoil. Claudia Jones settled in Britain during a time of increased migration from the Caribbean during the post-war period after the establishment of the British Nationality Act in 1948. Britain was trying to establish their own identity after the Second World War and a needed shift away from their colonial identity. This made them the supposed mother country for all former colonies, allowing all members of former colonies the right to British citizenship in the hopes of relocating and finally being welcomed to the home of the empire. Immigration from the Caribbean steadily increased in the 1950s, and especially in 1954 where 24,000 people arrived, and by 1955 around 115,000 people had left the Caribbean to make a new life in Britain. This promise of settling in the mother country, which infantilized the people of the colonies, unfortunately did not play out as it was portrayed. Because of the colonial system, the community structure that Britain had established that relied on white supremacy, the new migrants from the Caribbean were entering into an environment that would not be welcoming. 55% of immigrants from the West Indies experienced a job downgrade after migrating to Britain, most having to work in unskilled professions despite their backgrounds as professional workers. The community also faced systematic oppression during this time in respect to housing. A private poll conducted in 1956 by John Dare found that 15 out of 1,000 white people in Birmingham were willing to accommodate colored people. Many West Indian tenants were forced to pay exorbitant rents to slum landlords, and many ended up finding accommodation from slum landlords as their choices were limited due to this discrimination. Communities such as in Notting Hill had a large concentration of Caribbean migrants, and there was a gendered rhetoric that demonized black men, claiming that they were a sexual threat to white Britishness and of their communities, and also a sexual threat to white British women. This rhetoric continued to loom large over these communities. This political and social climate was about to spill over, and when it did, change needed to come. The violence ultimately occurred with the Notting Hill race riots of 1958. Scenes such as this became a very real situation that racialized immigrants in Notting Hill found themselves in. This was caused largely by the amplification of anti-immigrant and racist sentiment that was being propagated within Britain at this time. The Notting Hill race riots started off as a violent pub brawl, but resulted in 1,000 young white British men violently targeting Caribbean migrants and community members. Many of these young men were in their teens and full of racially motivated violent intentions. Enter Claudia Jones. Jones saw this and knew she needed to act in order to stop this growing anti-immigration sentiment and display her desire to reject colonialism and white supremacist ideals by displaying her culture in opposition. Jones would establish the West Indian Gazette, a newspaper that Jones ran where progressiveness was established on their beliefs and fought back against the racial and gender discrimination that the Caribbean migrant community were experiencing. This commercial paper was run by the influential feminist and anti-colonial advocate Claudia Jones. The emphasis would be to educate and advocate against imperialism and racism through feminist viewpoints. The paper also aided in moving away from colonial labels such as West Indian, instead referring to the community as the Afro-Asian Caribbean community in order to resist continuing systematic colonial power structures. Jones would also be responsible for creating the Caribbean Carnival, a beauty contest that would include those from the Afro-Asian community. Jones was openly enthusiastic about promoting beauty culture, seeing its potential to assist black women in acquiring the markers of femininity and dignity. This carnival was established in order to racially force decolonization, and allow Afro-Asian Caribbean women to challenge for visibility within the public sphere. In Britain, Jones wanted to create a sense of community for many migrants that were disenfranchised under the gendered and racial attack from the white supremacist society they were trying to make a new life in. Jones' Carnival also included a beauty pageant that was responsible for affirming various feminine identities, as any Afro-Asian Caribbean woman was allowed to participate in challenging colonial stereotypes of beauty and the color system that had been implemented by the British in the Caribbean, that created lasting trauma, internal discrimination amongst the community's idea of what is feminine and what is their idea of femininity. Jones herself regarded the beauty competition as pragmatic and a tool that they could use to be inclusive towards the West Indian identity, and within this showed a particular concern and in affirming an inclusive black femininity. Jones understood that blackness as a political category could be a basis for common identification and resistance. In 1962, the Gazette featured a retrospective of former beauty queens that they had promoted in their carnival. This piece marked the efforts and successes of these select few black women in attempting to create careers such as actors, singers, and dancers. And even the first carnival queen, Faye Sparks, had been able to join a cabaret in Europe. Through opportunities for professional work were scarce, black performers in Jones' midst formed a thriving amateur community, organizing themselves throughout the West Indian and African Students' Union in particular. To this end, Jones' efforts in securing a televised black beauty competition are all the more remarkable. The Gazette heralded black women entering the arts and entertainment, not to overstate the black reality, but rather to encourage and motivate hopefuls, and to, in effect, improvement in prospects of black performers. Here we have the example of Faye Sparks, who actually was the first winner of the black beauty contest in the carnival that Jones hosted. Ultimately, the carnival remains as a large event that continues to represent various minority groups from across the globe to this day, and remains one of the largest street festivals in the world. Its continuation serves as a reminder to us all that representation and racial, gendered, and cultural understanding and tolerance is the foundation for progress. Its survival is a testament to the significance of Claudia Jones's impact not only in Britain, but in the continuation of progression in society and the continued decolonization and inclusiveness that we see throughout the world.